every day will mark a greater descent into novelty. And as I say, a worldwide economic collapse would certainly precipitate all kinds of other changes. And there's plenty of instability in the system. I mean, the Chinese are playing with the idea of world war, or at least their military are, while the political people are busy dying. Once you get the internationalist rhetoric out of Marxism, what you have is National Socialism. So it isn't communists that are about to return to power in Russia. It's National Socialism that's about to take power in Russia. That's a terrifying possibility. And then, of course, as I said, the unexpected, which can be anything from asteroid strike to technical innovation to Ebola outbreak to political assassination. These things are, you can bet on the unexpected. It's the safest bet on the table. Yeah.
The curious thing for me, again, going back to millenarianism, is in a sense the construct is an abstraction. We are not reaching the year 2000, in essence, means nothing. It is the energy that we bring to it that, in a sense, creates the atmosphere for the events to take place.
Well, you mean that that the year 2000 is no different from any other year?
Exactly.
Well, except that if you look at the way society frames its values, one of the largest value frames that we have, perhaps arguably the largest, is the calendar. And so once you accept a calendar, then its rhythms become automatic. And so here we are facing the turn of 1,000 years, which, you're right, in and of itself, it's nothing, but because we are psychologically driven by it, it becomes something. You can hear these politicians, if they have no rhetoric, they just use the calendar itself as a rhetorical launching pad and try to make that seem like progress. Here's a progressive program. We'll turn the millennium. Well, we're going to turn the millennium, and whether it's progressive or not. There will be a lot of Christian hysteria as we approach the millennium, because it's not only, well, it's their last chance. I mean, I don't think anybody believes that in 3000, Christianity will be making a major push. This is their last chance to deliver, and they are very confident of the delivery, and so there is a spreading hysteria. And of course, whenever society becomes incomprehensible, people assume that the end is near. And that seems to attend that spreading social confusion. Millenarianism is inevitably, well, not inevitably, but largely a phenomenon of the displaced, the economically desperate, and so forth. Yeah.
Now, what do you think is going to happen? Is there going to be another nativistic movement, or a large cargo cult? I mean, what's going to happen?
You mean over the next 10 years or so?
Pat Buchanan?
I don't think so. I think Pat Buchanan is discovering the world is even more novel than he supposed. If you've never won and you win, that's novel. But now it's time to win again, and it's no longer novel. You're back with the problem you had before you won the first time. I'm very hopeful, because as I look at large scales of time, I see that what has always been conserved is greater richness of opportunity, greater freedom. And the way I define the ultimate omega point of novelty is it must be the place where all things become possible. How could it not be that? Because that's what novelty means, is strange things being possible. Well, when all strange things are possible, you've met the novelty maxima. Well, how could such a place exist? Well, it couldn't unless you move into hyperspace, or if you invent time travel, or something like that. Then you break the forward momentum of linear history. but that's conceivable. I mean, there's no reason intrinsically why time travel is impossible. And time travel is simply a Romana clef for transformation of energy and matter on all scales. Time travel is faster than light travel. These things all become the same thing. And there is no reason why these things can't be anticipated. You know, the whole purpose of data coordination, whether it's occurring in an amoeba or a mega international corporation, the purpose of data coordination is to predict the future. Always. I mean, that's what your senses do for you. You know, notice when you look over there and decide to walk over there, you're also deciding to walk over then. In other words, you are coordinating data to move through time and space toward a future point. And the whole evolution of life, on one level, can be seen as a conquest of dimensions. You know, the earliest forms of life were fixed slimes of some sort. And then motility, motion became a possibility, but just basically groping in a linear line, unable to see what is ahead of you, unable to see what you've just left, but groping. Well, then over time and through evolution, light-sensitive chemicals get sequestered on the surface of these organisms. And now they have a gradient that tells them where light is, and they can go toward it or away from it. They are gaining dimensional sophistication. Well, from that point to the evolution of human beings, it's basically evolution works on one theme: the developing of better bodies for the conquest of three-dimensional space. So the fin turns into the leg and so forth and so on. And then finally that's like fulfilled in higher animals. You know, the cheetah can run 70 miles an hour and so forth and so on. These are the limits of flesh are achieved. But then at that point, mind begins to flex its muscle and move forward. And what is language but the ability to recreate the past in the present, or to recreate the hypothetical in the present? In other words, in a world without language, experience is always being lost. You have it and then it goes away. If you can talk about it around the campfire and tell the stories, then the past stays with you. And the ancestors accompany you on your journey through time. Well, then if you get still more sophisticated and begin to write, now not only the great myths, the enduring triumphs and tragedies of your group can be kept, but all the minutiae, the tax records, the tallies of crops bought and sold, the king lists, everything can be. And now, you know, through the transformation of media electronically, we essentially, the past is a file in our world. And the file is more and more, you know, once we have VR, much of the past will stay around as an adjunct to the present. On the other end of that equation, we have developed incredibly powerful mathematical tools for predicting and extending data into the future. It's terribly, terribly important. The stock market is a good example. I mean, we need to know how these markets operate in order to avoid social confusion and breakdown of social systems. Inventory theory is a place where, you know, you need to know 6 weeks, 10 weeks out where you're going to be, because if you're warehousing a lot of stuff, you're losing money. If you can refine your predictive understanding of how your market operates, you can save a lot of money. You can save and make money by predicting the future. This has not been lost on anybody. And so there's a great deal of interest in doing this. Well, if this is a valid program of research, then its holy grail would obviously be as complete a prediction of the future as is feasible. And I think, the time wave and catastrophe theory and complexity theory and these things are new techniques and new styles of trying to approach that ideal. Yeah.
What constitutes something that clues you in and say, wait, that was a novel, that typifies novelty? Because things that I've been hearing about so far have to do with like presidential elections or stock market crashes. None of that seems very novel to me.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Novelty, I think I may have mentioned this, but it's worth discussing. Novelty should never occur without its ghost concept accompanying it, which is its opposite, which is habit. In my version of how the universe works, it's a struggle between these two forces, habit and novelty. And in a period of 1,000,000 years, there's a way to draw the picture of the battle. And in the last 10 minutes, there's a way to draw the picture of the battle. So what is habit? Habit is repetition of activities already accomplished. Repetition is habit. Tradition is habit. Limited risk-taking is habit. I think you get the idea. Novelty, on the other hand, is high risk, new, untried, strange, unusual, stands out from the surrounding environment, and surprises. So against God's intercession into history, Pat Buchanan's win in New Hampshire may not appear to be greatly novel, but that's not the correct scale of comparison. The correct scale of comparison was the expectation that he would lose. You see, so habit and novelty occur in the most sublime and mundane dimensions because they're relative terms. They're always measured against their surround, so that, if you're in some incredibly constipated, ritual-dominated society, and you so much as put a spot of paint on your toenail, social ripples go out from this. It has to be explained, defended. What does this mean? Who does it challenge? It's a novel act against the background of such constipated expectations. On the other hand, there are societies where full-body elective surgery won't even get a ripple from your gang when you show up at the coffee house. So that's an area where the standards of novelty and habit are different. Over large scales of time, it seems very clear to me that the story of our universe is novelty is winning. Novelty is winning. It's a very slow battle of attrition because habit is so reluctant to give ground and will take ground back. But over large scales of time, novelty is winning. That's where we come into the picture. That's why there's life on this planet. That's why there's people on this planet. That's why there's high technology on this planet, because novelty is winning. That's one point. The other point is it's winning faster and faster. It isn't simply proceeding at the same pace. What happens in a 10-year period now is orders of magnitude more connections being made than were made in a 10 or 1,000 or perhaps million-year period at times in the past. And all time is the connections, the events which fill it. In other words, if you think of 1,000,000 years in absolutely empty space, and ask what's it like to experience 1,000,000 years in absolutely empty space, it passes in an instant because nothing happened. If nothing happened, then there was no time. You know, time is defined by the events which fill it. If there are no events, time collapses into nothingness. A universe in which nothing happens is a universe that has no duration.
So you need duality to have time.
Yeah, yeah. It's an illusion of a lower dimensional slice of reality.
You need duality. Is it a priori, like Kant said?
Is the dualism a priori?
Time.
It's given, if that's what you mean by a priori. It's a real thing, and by that I mean we could argue what that means, but it's a real thing in the same way that space, time, and space, gravitation, and energy are real things. It's not a construct of the human mind.